to another Coffee with Colin. Thank you for joining me. I had a busy week, lots going on, which is great complaint to have. But I've recently started to use Zoom. That's the video conferencing facility for connecting with various groups around the country, and it's a fascinating tool altogether. Saves a huge amount of time in terms of travelling. And I was on the road on Friday and I had a Zoom meeting scheduled for 12:30 where I had to connect with 8 others in the Carambola organisation. And so I pulled in at the side of the road, turned off the engine, left my phone plugged in because Zoom uses a lot of phone battery, left that plugged into the car so it would charge, and left the ignition switch turned on but the engine off, and proceeded with a Zoom meeting with 8 other people, which went on for about an hour. And the next thing, my battery died. Not my phone battery, my car battery. Car battery died. Sitting there at the side of the road feeling stupid. Anyway, I was thinking what I was going to do now, so I obviously came off the meeting. I was wondering what I was going to do now, and realised that I either needed to get a push to start the engine, or I needed to get jump leads to start the engine, one or the other. Either way, there was a van parked directly in front of me, so I had to move the car back, and thankfully there were a couple of spaces behind me where I was parked, so I decided that I'd push the car back. But try as I might, I couldn't move the thing, right? There I am on my own, trying to shift a car, and it wouldn't budge. And then I remembered the rocking back and forth principle. And some of you may have done this before, and if you ever get stuck, some of you may do it in the future. But basically, if you start by just nudging the car forward and then back, and forward and back, and forward and back, you can actually get some momentum. And eventually I got 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and all of a sudden I had enough momentum to push the car back, sufficient to allow a car come in if need be, and help jumpstart the car. Happy days. It reminded me of a time where twice in my life I've jumped out of perfectly good airplanes for charity, right? Doing parachute jumps from 10,000 feet up, 2 miles up, right? And it reminded me of those times because when you're exiting an aircraft, in case you haven't done that, right, you also need to learn to rock back and forth. So let me explain what happens. If you're skydiving for charity in a tandem jump, you get strapped to some guy or girl who's a professional skydiver, and strapped to their back, they're strapped to your back, and strapped to their back is the parachute, which is going to save your life, okay? And you're sitting on the floor of this tiny little aircraft 2 miles up, right? And you get to bum forward and slide open a door and watch the little fluffy clouds flutter by as your stomach does cartwheels, okay? And you're wondering, what the heck have you just done? And anyway, all of a sudden you find yourself sitting on the side of the airplane, and if this is the side of the plane, here's your 2 legs dangling in the wind, right? And so your legs, if you can imagine you're sitting on your kitchen table with your legs, if you like, tucked under the table. That's what you're asked to do. Tuck your legs under the aircraft. So you got your legs tucked under like this, and you've got your arms crossed like this in a death pose, right? And you're looking up towards the ceiling or towards heaven, whichever, okay? And then your instructor asks you to begin to rock forward and back, and forward and back, and forward. And all of a sudden you're plummeting to earth. And within 12 seconds you reach terminal velocity. I always hated that phrase. You reach terminal velocity, which is about 120 miles an hour, almost 200 kilometers an hour within 12 seconds, okay? And you're plummeting towards earth. And by the way, at 12 seconds you're already 450 meters, 1,500 feet closer to earth. So you're praying that the parachute will open. Anyway, what's all that got to do with you and I? What struck me about those 2 instances, brought to mind by my car battery dying, is that there's power in rocking back and forth. If you find yourself stuck in your life in some shape or form, well then, rather than trying to take on too much in any one go, like me trying to push the car in just one go, consider just rocking forward and rocking back, rocking forward and allowing yourself rock back. If you're on the back foot in some aspect of your life today, and have been for some time, it's going to take a lot of effort to rock forward onto the front foot, which is where you want to be, okay? But rather than trying to do all that in one go, in one fell swoop, well then just start, just rock forward and rock back, and rock forward again and allow yourself rock back, and rock forward again and allow yourself the luxury of rocking back, and forward and back. And it could be in your finances, could be in your health, could be in your relationships, could be in your career, could be in the thesis that you're trying to write, could be in the study that you're trying to do for some exam. What area in your life today are you feeling on the back foot about? What area are you feeling overwhelmed by? Whatever that area is, well then simply this week all I ask you to do is to begin to rock forward and allow yourself the luxury of rocking back. Rock forward, make some change, take some step in the right direction and allow yourself rock back. And that very momentum will allow you build up speed over time. And that speed over time will allow you rock forward onto the front foot and stay there. So the lesson in this week's Coffee with Colin, for me as well as for you, is when you find yourself in overwhelm, when you find yourself stuck, when you find yourself and you're fed up being on the back foot, well, rather than trying to do it all in one fell swoop, rather than trying to go from 0 to 120 miles an hour in 12 seconds, right? Simply rock forward and rock back and rock forward a little further and rock back and rock forward a little further and rock back. And eventually, I promise you, you'll have rocked forward enough and created enough momentum to remain on the front foot. Happy days. And thank you for joining me for this week's Coffee with Colin. I hope and trust as ever you got something from it. Very importantly, please consider what's been shared here today and apply it into your thinking for this next week. And then equally as importantly, come back next week and we'll share another coffee together and I'll ruminate on some other aspect of life and business. Between now and then, get some great coffee for sure. Get some fresh air. Get some R&R. If you spend too much time with people, I recommend you take some time alone. Conversely, if you spend too much time alone, I recommend you get out and meet some people. And then when the time is right, and only when the time is right, get your head back in the game, get organised for the week ahead, get stuck in, make next week count, rock forward, rock back, rock forward, rock back and rock forward again. And I'll see you here this time next week for another Coffee with Colin. Slaughter. I love great coffee. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.